Hello students, how are you all? I hope you all are doing good. So now we are going to study our next lesson. Okay, so let's observe this image. What do you think about this image? What is this? Yes, you have to tell me. Identify this image, students. Yes. Who will tell me which cloth is it? Is it a cotton cloth or a silk cloth or any other type of fabric? Okay, so basically student, this is a silk cloth. Okay, and what is its appearance, student? How does it look like? Is it shiny in structure, shiny in appearance? Yes, it is very shiny in appearance. And now what is the next thing? So can you think you can tear it off very easily? Yes, no. So it is the very hard fabric. We cannot easily tear this silk very easily. Okay, so now we are going to study about silk and its formation in this class. Okay, so see student, silk is a natural fiber. That means we get silk from nature, which is obtained by an insect called as silk moth. So silk fibers are also animal fibers. Silkworm spin the silk fibers. The silk fiber is made up of protein. Silk is the strongest natural fiber. Okay, so we can say that silk is obtained from silk moth. Okay, so it is also known as animal fiber. So moving to the next part, student, we can see in this image that there is a life cycle of caterpillar, or we can say butterfly. Okay, so now you have to identify each stage, the life cycle stage. Yes students, so you have to identify each stage of the life cycle of moth. Okay, so I will give you 30 seconds to identify each and every step, and very easily you can tell me all the 4 steps that is found in the life cycle of moth. Okay. So student, we can see here that on the first mark, the first number here, it is written egg. So who gave this egg? So basically it is the female moth who gave the egg. Female moth gave the egg. Okay, now what will happen? This egg will hatch out on the leaf, and this leaf is a special leaf called mulberry leaf. Okay, now on this leaf there will be development of larva stage, and this larva is known as caterpillar. It is known as caterpillar, or we can say silkworm. Okay, now what will happen? This larva will again transform into pupa stage. So you can see here the pupa is totally covered, okay, by some thread like structure. Okay, now what will happen? This pupa will develop into moth, okay, and then this moth will develop into adult butterfly, and if there will be a female moth, it will give rise to the egg. Clear? All the stages of life cycle of moth is clear, I think. Let's see the things. So first of all, we have studied that the female moth, silk moth, lays eggs on the mulberry leaf. Okay, the eggs are hatched into very small larvae within a week. So we can see here the larva. So female larva give rise to the small egg, give rise to the larva form. And what is the name of the larva? The larva of silk moth are called caterpillar. The larva of silk moth is known as caterpillar or silkworm. Okay, the silkworm feed on the leaves of mulberry tree and grow bigger in size. Okay, so the silkworm will feed, or they will eat the mulberry leaves and they will grow in size. Clear, student? Is there any problem? Yes, I hope there would be no problem to you, because it is very simple that the female moth once again will lay the egg. Now it will be developed into larval stage within a week. In just 1 week it will develop into larva, and this larva is known as caterpillar. And what will happen to this larva? It will again grow on the mulberry leaves and become bigger and bigger. Now see, student, the formation of silk here, and observe this image for 30 seconds. I am giving you 30 seconds, and then I will ask what you have seen here. Okay, student, so now let's explore this image. So basically this structure is nothing but the larva of moth, and what we call the larva of moth as? We call it as caterpillar, or we can say it is a silkworm. Okay, now you can see there is some white structure forming upon the body of this caterpillar. Okay, so what is happening over here is that there is formation of small thin white structure, thread like structure. Okay, and it is forming around the body of this caterpillar. Clear? So here also we can see some of the balls of white thread. So basically what it is? Basically it has changed into the structure known as, yes, pupa. It is a pupal stage. Okay, so this caterpillar is actually inside the thread like structure, that is known as cocoon. The thread like structure this is formed, it is known as cocoon. Okay, so is it clear to you that there is one silkworm and it is forming one thread like structure, and once it come upon the exposure of air it hardens. Okay, it hardens like ball like structure and form outer structure is known as cocoon. Okay, and this stage in which there is cocoon, that stage is known as pupal stage. Okay, so students, see here, when the silkworm or caterpillar is ready to enter the next stage of its development called pupa, it first weaves a net to hold itself. Then it swings its head from side to side. During this movement of head, the silkworm secretes fiber made up of protein which hardens on exposure to air and becomes silk fiber. Soon the silkworm or caterpillar covers itself by silk fiber and turns into pupa. This covering is known as cocoon. The silkworm continues to develop in the form of pupa inside the cocoon to form the silk moth. Okay student, just now we have discussed everything we have discussed, that the larva will develop thread-like structure around itself and at last it will become a cocoon. Covering is known as cocoon. Basically the covering is known as cocoon, and this stage where cocoon is formed, that stage is known as pupal stage. Is it clear students? Okay. Now tell me, pupa is covered with dash, that is white thread-like structure, that is known as what? Okay, I will give you 30 seconds of time. You have to tell me within that. Okay. Yes. Pupa is covered with thread-like structure known as cocoon. Okay. So now we will move forward. Now we are going to see the life cycle of silk moth in more details. Okay, so starting from female and male part. Okay, they are still the moth. The fertilization between male and female moth on the mulberry leaves will give rise to caterpillar. Okay, that is also known as silkworm. So this is the first stage where the male moth and the female moth fertilizes the gamete, and they lay egg on the mulberry leaves. And what happens after that? After 1 week there is a development of caterpillar, that is silkworm. Clear? Now see, developing larvae feed on mulberry leaves and grow bigger, and the outer covering is formed in the pupal stage, that is known as cocoon. Development of cocoon around the caterpillar, there will be a development of cocoon. Now development of moth from the cocoon, so and from the cocoon there will be development of moth. Okay, and now again the male moth and the female moth will fertilize each other to give egg. Okay, so I will give you 30 more seconds to watch it very carefully, this life cycle, and you may ask the question if you have. Okay, so moving forward students, so I have written some of the points here. In order to produce silk, the silkworm developing inside the cocoon is not allowed to mature into an adult like silk moth. Now we all know that silk is actually in the pupal stage. Okay, so by anyhow we have to stop the stage of cocoon, that is pupal stage, so that we can get maximum to maximum amount of silk from it. Okay, so as soon as the cocoon is formed, it is used to obtain silk fibers, and the developing silkworm gets killed. Okay, now when we obtain the maximum amount of silk fiber, what do? We kill the silkworm. Okay, we do not make them further develop, but we also keep some of the silkworm to allow to live and mature, so that there may be more silk moth that can produce the egg and hence produce more silkworm. So student, it is very simple thing that if we are growing 10,000 silkworm, okay, 10,000, let's suppose, now it will develop into the pupal stage, all the 10,000. Okay, now what will happen? We will kill all the at least 90% of pupal stage caterpillar. Okay, and the remaining caterpillar or remaining pupal stage moth will made to again reproduce to egg more and more eggs to form silkworm, that is larva. Okay students, so see, like we have studied right now that the silkworm develop on the mulberry leaves. Okay, so such caterpillar which develop on the mulberry leaves form the mulberry silk. Okay, so it is one type of silk that is obtained from the cocoons of mulberry silk moth, is called mulberry silk. Mulberry silk is soft, lustrous, elastic, and can be dyed in beautiful color. So it is basically elastic in nature. So this is one kind of mulberry silk. But there are more silk, there are different type of silk. Okay, and all those silk have different properties within themselves. Like we have tassar silk, kosa silk, moga silk, etc. Okay, and they are formed in different plants. So basically we have to remember these names like mulberry leaves, mulberry silk, then we have tassar silk, kosa silk, then we have moga silk. Okay, 1 2 3 4. So we have to remember this silk. M for mulberry, T for tassar, K for kosa, M for moga. MTKM. MTKM. Mulberry, tassar, kosa and moga. Now tell me student, one question is there. Only silkworm can give the silk? Only silkworm can give the silk? Or there is some other type of silk also obtained other than the silk moth? Let's think. I am giving you 30 seconds of time. Yes student, think, can silkworm only give the silk or any other natural product can give the silk? Yes student, so yes, you are very sure, you are very correct that not only this silkworm or silk moth give the silk, but we can obtain the silk from the other sources also. Okay, so first of all, see, if we obtain the silk from this pupal stage, this one, so it will be called as natural silk. Okay, why it is called as natural silk, students? Because it is basically obtained from the cocoon. But see, there is other type of silk also, that is known as artificial silk. Okay, so basically here it is the usage of different types of chemical also to obtain the silk from the plant. So artificial silk is obtained from wood pulp and it is made up of modified plant material, that is cellulose. So from the cellulose which is present in the plant, they can also be formed into artificial silk with the help of certain chemicals. So we can call this silk as a artificial silk. Okay. Now see, student, just like silk, wool is also made up of proteins. So silk and wool both are made up of proteins. So a piece of woolen fabric also burns, giving the smell of burning hair, because we know that the hair is also made up of keratin protein. The thread which burns, giving a smell of burning paper, will be cotton fibers. The cotton and paper both are carbohydrates. Paper is made up of cellulose obtained from wood pulp. So on burning the cotton and paper, both will give the similar smell. If we burn cotton and paper, because both contain carbohydrate, so on burning they will give same type of smell. So pure and artificial silk are obtained from dash and dash respectively. Who will tell me? So pure silk is obtained from cocoon and the artificial silk is obtained from the plant pulp or fiber. Okay. So now we will recapitulate the chapter whatever we have studied. So we have studied about the what we have studied, students? Different type of silk, their formation, yes, and how does it is reared. So moving forward, these are your homework, student, and you have to solve these questions. Okay, so till then, student, have a nice day. Thank you everyone. Okay, well done, student. We will meet in the next class.